So they were kind of like two sides to your early life and early career. Like you were involved in a cult,
Yes.
which is wow. We
Yes.
not speak about that. I kind of want to hear about the origins of that, and then cross over to the modeling.
You know, I find the most effective way to really frame it is to say to someone, I had a 20-year cultic relationship with a group.
Okay.
And the reason I prefer to say that, although that's not the way I always say it, is because you hear that word cult, and I would have been the same way if I hadn't had my experience. And you're so kind of ingrained from the media of what the trigger images that come to mind when you hear that word, like Jonestown or, the Charlie Manson. And you're just thinking like, what did you sacrifice babies? Did you kill people? Did you guys commit suicide? So that it becomes a hole to dig out of in a sense. And the reason I say that, when you say the word cultic relationship, people get a little more inquisitive, like, well, what does that mean? So a cultic relationship is a clinical term, and it basically stands for any kind of relationship. And it's usually referencing the most common form, which is a one-on-one relationship, where the person you've gotten involved with, you've come to care for them to the point where you are kind of seeking their love and approval. Mm-hmm. And unconsciously, you've kind of put them in this kind of authoritarian position. And that person, and luckily not everyone reacts this way, but certain people, when given that kind of power, they'll take that position and use it to control and possibly abuse you. Wow. And so what you experience being on the downside of that is no matter what you do, it never seems to be enough. No matter how hard you try, you're always kind of being diminished. And, most people find a way out of that relationship because it's obviously not a lot of fun. But what they don't recognize is how traumatic that type of relationship is and how it leaves deep scars. I like to think of cults and cultic relationships as spectrums, so I would say on the one-on-one, kind of cultic relationship, the extreme of that would be the battered wife, where you have a conversation with someone who's hurting from their spouse, and you're looking at them telling these stories, and you're like, well, you're going to leave, right? And of course, they say, no, you don't understand. He doesn't want to do it. It's my fault. Like if I wouldn't do these things that I do, then it wouldn't happen. Yeah. And so that's kind of the extreme version of that. And then obviously you have healthy one-on-one relationships. So every relationship is going to fall somewhere in that spectrum. The same thing on the group dynamic. Team sports is a very healthy dynamic, right? You learn to work together, and actually you find out that by pulling your weight and staying in your lane, the team wins, and everyone's kind of being empowered on some level, and everyone's kind of considered to be, part of the team that really win as a team, and it's really great. So the extreme version of the unhealthy one is like a Jonestown, where 900 people take Kool-Aid and die, or else they get shot. So we're all somewhere on those spectrums, depending on these dynamics, and that's what I try to educate people about. Like these. When I talk about my experience, it's not from the point of view that this isn't something you can relate to. This isn't something you probably don't know about. It's actually something you probably have already encountered, but you've never diagnosed it or called it the right name. And that's why I think these stories are important to talk about, because sometimes you need to see the more extreme version, which is kind of the version I went through. And they become teaching tools to recognize the more subtle version that you probably went through in your own life.